processes, including the Madlanga Commission, without any recorded security incident. Additionally, O'Sullivan has himself been the one to send threatening messages to previous witnesses and those testifying in Parliament, and through his own revelation in the media has spoken extensively on these matters with extreme enthusiasm and no displayed fear of retaliation. Therefore, the sudden emergence of alleged threats at the precise moment they are required to account before Parliament raises legitimate questions about the credibility of these claims and the motivations behind them. It becomes evident then that the Speaker's refusal to authorize subpoenas amounts to political protection. We must all remember that O'Sullivan has got a special relationship with the President of the Republic of South Africa. The same goes to Brown Mokgotsi, who claimed to have very close relationship with the suspended Minister of Police. Hence, the protection we are seeing today, because they too will expose those politicians that are involved in wrongdoing.
And of course, EFF leader Julius Malema, there you heard from him saying that the National Assembly Speaker Togo Didiza's decision to shield Northwest businessman Brown Mokgotsi and private investigator Paul O'Sullivan is essentially political protection. Now, Didiza warned that Parliament must demonstrate that it has properly engaged with the reasons that were advanced by the two witnesses, particularly on security and availability and or risk having any subpoena set aside if challenged in court. Now, Malema was speaking during the media briefing that was held at the party's headquarters in Johannesburg yesterday. But of course, he's here right now, so we can get straight into it. Mr. Malema, thanks so much for coming through.
Thank you.
So much to talk about, and that is as good a place as any. So you're accusing the Speaker of Parliament of basically shielding Brown Mokgotsi and Paul O'Sullivan. But let's get into it. Why do you believe that this is a case of political shielding rather than just following the rules?
No, there are no rules being followed. We wrote to her in October. She only responded now knowing that by the 20th of February, we must wrap up our work. So we don't have time. And that response, once it comes late, even if you want to challenge it, there's nothing you can do about it. But it's not for her to say we must prove that indeed there is no security threat on Mokgotsi or Paul O'Sullivan. One, there is a security of Parliament that works with the police, that works with intelligence. If they call upon any witness and they pick up security threat, without even telling the committee, they take measures and ensure that the witness is protected in such a way that it doesn't compromise the integrity of the committee. Mokgotsi, who is alleging, must prove. He's the one who's alleging that there is a security threat. Paul O'Sullivan says there's a security threat, but they don't produce anything. I can just come to you and say, I'm pregnant without pregnancy test. I must be able to demonstrate that I'm pregnant. So I can't just take your word for it. They must prove they have not produced anything except say, we're threatened. And with Mokgotsi, it's even worse. They say he shot his own car and never went to the police station when police were looking for him. So how do you trust such a person? He's coming to implicate the ANC because he's the one who was a go in between Matlala and Senzo Mchunu and the rest of them. And they are tired of hearing that side of the story. Paul will do the same. To work with McBride is to work with higher cadres of the ANC. McBride did not deny that kind of a relationship. We know that Paul has got a relationship with the president that post 1994. That's why there is an article in the papers, the old article that shows Paul handing over an award to the president for community policing. What does the president have to do with community policing during apartheid? We were not policing community at that time. We were underground, we were in exile, prison, everywhere else fighting the struggle. The president is being awarded by an alleged spy from Britain as one of the good people during apartheid. So you can see this date back to those difficult times. And we're not about to get Paul O'Sullivan and Brown Mokgotsi because they enjoy the ANC speaker's protection.
So what you're essentially saying that you said it, there's a special relationship between O'Sullivan and President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Absolutely.
But in this instance, apart from the situation or the picture that you spoke to right now, is there any other evidence that you could present that states that makes sure that we know that there is, in fact, today, as you and I sit here, a special relationship between President Ramaphosa and Paul O'Sullivan?
I don't have to produce any evidence. It's there in the ad hoc committee where Patlani and General Mkhwanazi said, Paul O'Sullivan said in public, President gave me names of people he can appoint as national commissioners of police. And I therefore recommended Patlani as a national commissioner of police. So who of civilians, and that's what we want to ask him about, and that's what we are asking the president about. Why would you give such responsibility to recommend of the recommended people who is a suitable person to occupy a position of a national commissioner of police? What more do you want? If a person can be given such a responsibility where the president said, unprecedented by the way, advertise this post, let people apply, shortlist, interview, recommend. Certain people were recommended. Amongst them was Patlani. And then Paul O'Sullivan said the president gave him the list. And then he had to choose a suitable candidate. If the president did not give him that list to choose a suitable candidate who gave him that list, that answer can only be given by President and Paul O'Sullivan.
As the EFF, why is it imperative that Paul O'Sullivan appears before the ad hoc committee in person? Why is it not sufficient for him to give his evidence virtually?
It's you. What you did to him there on the virtual interview, the next thing when he didn't agree with your questions, he switched off. If he can do that to you, he's going to do that to us. He actually is doing that to us already. He says EFF, MK, and Action SA are not going to ask me questions because already they've made their mind, they're criminals, they're all and all of that. So once it's on virtual, you don't have control over him. But when it's in parliament, we're going to tell him and we'll demonstrate to him that he's nobody except being a citizen of this country like all of us. When he tries to throw tantrums and stand up, we're going to tell him, sit down. You're not going anywhere, sit down. You have taken an oath and you're going to sit through until we're done. Only the chairperson can give you a leave of absence. Otherwise, you're going to sit there. And he knows that we're not going to beg him because we're not scared of him. We are not the people he captured in the criminal justice system. That's what we want to get to the bottom of. A man who controls the police, a man who controls prosecutors, a man who controls the magistrate, a man who tells you on a national TV, I will deal with you, and nothing happens. He threatens members of parliament. He threatens witnesses of parliament who are on the stand. He sends them messages on the stand that I'm going to deal with you for the things you said about me in that committee. So it's high time that we put him at his place so he knows that there is nothing that gives him superiority. He's nothing in the government of South Africa, and he must behave like a normal citizen. Otherwise, we'll get him locked up and locked up for a very long time.
Time running out for the ad hoc committee. Do you think that there is a reasonable prospect that Paul O'Sullivan, that Brown Mokhotsi would appear before this committee before it has to conclude its work?
We're going to argue for extension of this committee. We're dealing with facts that are looking at the time. This was done deliberately. Paul O'Sullivan and Brown Mokhotsi were raised, their names were raised right at the beginning. Only now we're being told we're trying to get them. They are refusing. People want to be seen to be busy over nothing, pretending that they are on top of this matter, whereas they are not. So they are buying time. And when they buy time, we must play the same game. We must ask for this to be extended. Why was General Vuma, we just agreed on her now, why was she called after she wrote explosive documentation that shows how Minister Cele was interfering in the procurement, in the police, how the PPEs were given to companies that were not qualified? She was not called. And why is Richard Mdluli not called? His name was there for a very long time. The man who is at the center of crippling crime intelligence in South Africa and then using the slush fund for the benefits of politicians and concubines. There's a witness that came there said he even hired his girlfriend in the Eastern Cape crime intelligence and said no one can do anything about that. So this is a character, even if he's out of the police, he's still a South African citizen. This is a type of a character that needs to be called, who was tapping on the phones of people illegally without a magistrate or a judge's approval. All of those people who are critical are not being called. If anything, we are now dealing with things that are unrelated because they want to buy time.
The abuse of slush funds, as you mentioned,
Yes.
For the benefit of which politicians was that?
ANC politicians. The slush fund was used to benefit Zuma in his campaign. I'm told one of the witnesses also involved in Mbalula somehow. So generally, Mbalula even said they must buy a grabber for the conference of the ANC. What does the grab of the police have to do with the conference of the ANC? If the ANC picked up a security threat on their conference, they knew which measures to put in place to secure their conference. Otherwise, all of us must be board grabbers when we have a conference. So the money gets used not only of crime intelligence, including state security. There were serious allegations during the Zondo Commission that millions were put in bags to go to the CR17 conference in Nasrec. So we were almost getting there because now people were involved as runners, as ordinary people. We're now saying we can see these things taking us somewhere. Let's go there and tell the truth of what happened.
And speaking of the Zondo Commission, I think what we also can't do is give Parliament a free pass in everything that's happening, because the oversight role of Parliament is critical in making sure that this democracy functions effectively. And Parliament effectively is failing, because if you listen to a lot of the testimony that we've heard, yes, we're hearing greater details. Yes, we are hearing some new evidence in terms of things we may not have heard, but a lot of it has been in the public domain. A lot of these things have been canvassed in the portfolio committees. So where does Parliament come in here? Why has Parliament failed in dealing with many of these issues? If you look at, for example, the turf wars between IPID and SAPS at OR Tambo International, what has Parliament done in terms of being effective in its oversight role?
Well, we have done a lot. The problem is the majority of those who are in Parliament suppress the ideas of those who do not have numbers. For instance, in these processes we're talking about, the ANC does not have majority, but it has partners with other political parties that are now called GNU. They use the GNU majority to dismiss some of these issues. So Parliament is an issue of numbers. And for instance, I'm saying to you, October, already we're saying subpoena Paul O'Sullivan and Brown Mokhotsi. We cannot do anything. Our committee agreed that let's do that. The ANC members in the committee have agreed. But the leadership of the ANC in the form of Thoko Didiza is refusing, because according to rules, you can only subpoena a person if the speaker gives concurrence to such a decision. She's refusing to give concurrence to subpoena criminals who have crippled our criminal justice system and captured the police. Even if they don't extend this committee's term, they must know that at the end of the day, when we were right at the door of criminals who crippled criminal justice system, we were stopped by Thoko Didiza. It must be an epitaph on a grave that she protected criminals at a point, critical point, when the country was self-correcting. And you can't say we have not done anything when we have done everything in our power, yet those who have the final signature are refusing to attach their final signature so that we can kneel in the bud this criminal syndicate. So she's at the center. She made sure that this committee becomes useless by refusing to attach a signature. We cannot get to the bottom of this if we don't have Paul O'Sullivan and we don't have Brown Mokhotsi. who are saying he has been collecting money, financing ANC programs, and this money has been collecting it from drug syndicates, from criminal cartels, and financing the ANC. They were even planning to make a former minister or suspended minister of police a president with dirty money that comes from criminals. Why would you not be interested as a speaker who plays an oversight over the executive? Why would you not be interested that ministers are abusing their power by interfering, by soliciting bribes to pursue their political careers and ambition?
And I think I'm going to park that now because there's a lot still to discuss,
Yeah.
but I want to get to other matters other than the ad hoc committee and, of course, what's happening at the Madlanga Commission. Yesterday's briefing, you also mentioned the EFF's decision to withdraw from that cooperation, the working relationship with the ANC in Gauteng. So what's at the center of that?
Well, when you're not being respected, Sakina, on a dinner table, just pull out. That's respect is everything. We have been in the cooperation with these guys for quite some time. We will make certain demand in the negotiations. We want this, we want that. They will finally agree, okay, you can take this, we will take that, we'll take this, and all of that. We go and recall our speaker in Ekurhuleni to send her to provincial legislature and to bring the chairperson of the province to become a speaker. The ANC fielded a candidate against an EFF candidate on a position that they agreed that that position belongs to the EFF. In Johannesburg, they give more power and strategic positions to political parties that are so insignificant and do not have the numbers that the EFF has. The same thing in Tshwane. And we are generally being undermined in the provincial executive. The EFF does not even have a single MEC. And we're not fighting, but we keep on voting for their budget because without EFF and MK, they can't get 50+1 to pass the budget is by law. But they go and give insignificant small parties positions of MECs. And if combined, all of them combined, including those they gave committees to, they will never reach 50+1. Politically, also in terms of electoral politics, what informs your decision to put out people who are giving you that 50+1 out of government and still expect them to vote for you even when you have put them out of government? So we gave them this vote with a hope that they will self-correct. We also took a liking on Panyaza, who understands coalition politics, who never stops. I don't know how his wife survives because at any time you call him, evening, during the day, if there's a burning issue, he's going to come by himself. He will not say, I'm going to send someone to deal with that matter. And he will attend to those issues. Unfortunately, if things come to a push, he's going to have to leave the office. But the guy is so good, and I don't know where he got such skill to maneuver the coalition politics, which are not difficult, by the way. You can only maneuver them and successfully deal with them if you take the ego and put it aside and internally accept that we've lost power. We are now in a power-sharing agreement, and therefore I have to respect the other partners. Once you take that individual personal decision as a leader of that municipality, that I'm not in power, then healing comes from there. That's how you deal with other people.
So coalitions, and we are told this is the future of South African politics going forward. So it's also about compromise. And I was reading something over the weekend where the ANC was reported to have said that in Ekurhuleni, they are not against the EFF having the portfolio of MMC of Finance. What they are against is the candidate that the EFF is putting forward, Nkululeko Dunga. And they are saying anyone but Dunga. They say he's arrogant, they say he's a bully, and they don't want to work with him. So is that a red line for the EFF? Is the EFF not able to compromise and offer another candidate for that position? Or are you saying This is where we draw the line as the EFF. It is Dunga or nobody.
That is me choosing a man for you. You come and say, this is my chosen man, and I say, no, not this one.